All right. Do you ever feel that your life is going in circles? Do you sometimes feel that you're caught in an unending cycle, whether good or bad? Do you ever wish there was a pill you could take that would fix your life? Or maybe it could be a very special water from a very special well. Do you sometimes feel that you have come a long way and then feel like you're right back where you started? Do you sometimes just want to give up and go back to the old way of life? The name of this message is The Road to Egypt. Please stand and cover yourselves for the reading of our scriptures. For those of you who don't know, I am tethered, if you will. I've got wires hooked to me and I can't stand. Standing up is not a commandment given by God. It's just something that we do by tradition. Yeshua and his Talmudim, known as Jesus and his disciples, they did this and their followers did it as well. So we think it's a good thing to do. I just am unable to. All right, so here we go. Ba'ivrit in Hebrew. We're looking at Yeshayahu, which is known in the Western world as Isaiah, chapter 12, verse 3. It says, U she'avatem mayim v'sason mi ma'ene ha-Yeshua. That's not the guy's name. Then we're going to look a little bit at Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah 2:13, which says, Makor mayim hayim. It actually says more than that, but that's the part I want to focus on. You may be seated. We begin with Yeshayahu, with Isaiah 12:3. And our first word is Ushe'avtem, which literally is shall you draw. And we would think of it in the West as you shall draw. It's to draw water to quench one's thirst, which is done by drawing water. The primary idea seems to be that of taking off the surface. So if you can think of, you go to a river, you get down on your knees, you take your hands and put them together and you scoop the water up, it's from that picture. So it's of drinking. The image should be of you thinking of someone scooping water off the top, taking it out of a river to drink, to quench the thirst. Of course, then the next word connected to it is mayim, that's waters. You don't drink a water, you drink waters, right? Because it's many drops. Even if you drink a single cup, you're still drinking waters. That's the Hebrew way of thinking. So it's in plural, that's why. Then that's followed by besason, which is enjoy. It's joy, it's gladness of the ointments which they used at banquets. That's followed by mima anai, or anai rather, which is from wells. It's a place irrigated with fountains, a fountain itself. Metaphorically, it appears to indicate the greatest joy, pleasure, delights. You should see this idea in your mind of this overflowing, like a waterfall flowing over of joy, just overflowing, flooding, the river overflowing its banks, the water coming purposely to you. This joy was meant for you. It's great joy. Then that's followed by Ha-Yeshua. What's that sound like? The Yeshua, right? Now, when you see the word Yeshua in Hebrew, when they transliterate, when they use our letters from our language, and they write it out Y-S-H-U-A-H, that's the verb, not the noun. If it's the noun, they won't put the H on the end. Just a little, not necessarily true, but rule of thumb you can live by. This is the verb form of the word, not the noun. So they're not saying anything about Yeshua here. But it's the salvation, that which is delivered, safe, deliverance, help, victory. It is from the root yasha, which is to be spacious, ample, broad, figuratively to be opulent. The signification of ample space is in Hebrew applied to liberty, deliverance from danger and distresses, as on the other hand, narrowness of space is frequently used of distress and dangers. So if you were a money grubbing wolf in sheep's clothing, you might grab a hold of this and say, see, God wants you to be rich, send me money. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. No, it's not what we're talking about. In the biblical period, and back in the olden times, back just after the dinosaurs and whatnot, no, back in this time period, in the biblical time period, prison was underground. It, you got to think before the Iron Age. What did they do with people? Well, they would take a dried up well or a dried up cistern. What's a cistern? That's a hole they dug in the ground so that when it rained, it would fill up with water, and they had a place to get water for a while till it evaporated, or if you wanted to make it as you dig them in the rock as best you could because it would last longer. Because if you put it in the dirt, it's just going to seep into the ground, right? So it's a dried up cistern. It's something that there's no water in it. The rainy season is gone. It's the middle of the summer. The guy's in trouble. What are you going to do? You drop him inside that. What do you do then? You put a rock over the top of it. And the cistern's not very big. It's not like they went out and dug these gigantic swimming pools in the stone. You think about how hard it would be to dig in stone back, particularly before the Stone Age. So this would probably be naturally made. But you follow what I'm saying when I'm speaking of the cistern. A well would have been dug in the ground, but they would have lined it with rock, right? So the deeper you go down, the more narrow it gets. And so it's of the narrowness. And when they dropped you in with your hands over your head because the hole's not going to be much bigger around than a man's body. And you got to think, not a man's body of today, a man's body back then when men were skinny, very skinny, and much shorter and smaller. People were smaller back then. In fact, if you had a man that was 6'4", 6'6", he would have been called a giant. Just saying. But anyway, I digress. Maybe not that. I just want to get off that subject as quickly as I can. So anyway, they drop you down into this hole, and the further down you went, the more narrow it became, the more squished and smushed you became, and then they put the rock over it. It was complete darkness. So when your sentence was up or somebody came and paid your ransom, what's the word? They redeemed you. Like you've been fined, you owed someone 50 cents, and so they threw you into prison. Just think about it. It's a long time ago. 50 cents was a lot of money. I'm in a mood today. You just have to put up with me. So somebody comes along and pays 50 cents. They'll move the stone and pull you out, right? When they do that, they're pulling you out into the light, the sunlight and all that, because you've been in complete darkness. So now you've got the brightness and the light and the opulence, if you will, the wide open spaces of the world. You're not distressed and cramped in anymore. You've got the whole world. That's what they're talking about. Doesn't have anything to do with money or riches or wealth or any of that. So my translation of Yeshayahu, or Isaiah 12:3, and this is a amplified translation. Mine goes this way: therefore, with joy and gladness, you will scoop water up out of the fountains of opulent deliverance, liberty, and victory. Let me read that again. Therefore, with joy and gladness, you will scoop water up out of the fountains of opulent deliverance, liberty, and victory. So let me just put a little dig in here. If your experience with God is not like this, something's wrong, right? Maybe. Just a thought. Now let's look at a couple of words from Yirmiyahu, from Jeremiah 12:13. Remember I said there was only a few words that I really wanted to concentrate on. The first word is Makor. That's the word for fountain. And it's a fountain. It's from the root kur, which is to dig, especially a well. So the idea of digging a hole in the ground, like I said, they would line it with rock. Because if you didn't line it with rock, well, I'm thinking of the cistern. But anyway, The wells, I suppose some of them early on probably weren't lined with rocks, but eventually they realized you wanted to line it with rocks because you had cave-in problems and were redigging the well and, all of that kind of stuff. Plus, it would get dirty. You'd be pulling mud out of the ground if you weren't watching it. So lining it with rock, but you don't have to think about that here. But it's the idea of digging the hole for the purpose of getting water, but they call it a fountain. And then the next word is mayim. That's waters. It's water in plural. uh, because there's really no such thing as a water. We would call it a drop of water, but even that's made up of several different elements, if you think about it. At least three. H2O, right? It's two parts of one thing and one part of the other. Just saying. So they always use it in plural in Hebrew, but it's just waters. It can be anything. It can be an ocean. It can be a river. It can be, as we're saying in this case, fountain. Then it says Hayim, living. This is important because it's living, it's lively, it's flourishing, it's prosperous, metaphorically, at the reviving of the season. In other words, at the beginning of a year, the next spring, when the winter is past, fresh as of a plant, as in greenness of as of running water. This is where we got to get into it because we're speaking very specifically about water. So it's when they talk about living water, they're talking about moving water. So you got to think in terms of a river. And why is that important in the world? Because if you think about it, if you pour water in a bathtub and you jump in when you're dirty, pretty soon you're actually washing yourself with dirty water, aren't you? So you can only get so clean doing it that way. If you wash your dishes in a sink, it's the same thing. If you can only get so clean washing dishes in a dirty sink. So what do? We turn the water on and we rinse it off, right? And that's going to get the dirty water off of it, the soap and all of that stuff, and so we consider that clean. But how much more clean would it be if we washed our dishes with the water running on instead of letting it fill up in the deal? What if we washed it that way? Well, we know that that would be the cleanest and most pure way to do it, but that's expensive, right? And so the idea of cleaning in running water is the idea of opulence. It's waste. You see how that all ties together, the opulence and the water and the running water and the living water, right? So my translation, I translated the whole verse, but I just wanted to focus on the fountain of living waters so that you understood what this fountain was. It's waters that come from a spring, from a river. But what God said through Yirmiyahu, through Jeremiah in chapter 2, verse 13 was, "For my people have committed two evils." I can't see if you can see two fingers here. They've committed two evils. Two evils. They have forsaken me. They have forsaken me. God said, they have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. God is the fountain of living waters, the fountain of purity, the fountain of life. And why did they do it? He said, to hew for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. That sounds insane, doesn't it? Would you do that in real life? I mean, we don't think of God as real life, right? We think of fake life as real life. Think about it. I mean, would you really say, okay, I got this spring-fed fountain over here, and I'm going to forsake that. I'm going to go over here and dig a fountain, and it's going to break as I'm digging it, and I'm going to say to myself, this is better. And that's what you're supposed to be picturing here. Now let's take a look at something from the Sepharim Shelahim, from the New Testament letters. Yochanan, that's John, chapter 4, in that book, Yeshua left Galilee, and traveled through Shomron, through Samaria. He sat down at Yaakov's well, at Jacob's well, and said to a Shomroni, to a Samaritan woman, give me drink. Give me drink. Which, what did he mean? Give me water. The woman was quick to point out that the Yehudim, the Jews, don't have dealings with the Shomroni, who are these people? I forgot the English word. Samaritans. But then Yeshua says something to her. So she's pointing out, she's like, wow, are you like overheated from the sun? Do you not realize you're Jewish and I'm not Jewish? I'm half Jewish. I'm the Samaritan, half Jew people that aren't, are shunned and thought of literally as dogs. You must be crazed from the heat. Think about it, because your people say drinking from one of our water pots is like drinking from a dog's bowl. They really said stuff like that. So she's thinking this guy's overheated from the sun or something. So she points it out. You guys don't deal with us. So Yeshua says to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that says to you, give me drink, you would have asked of him, and he would have given you living water. Think about what he just said. God is the fountain of living water. He would have given you God. He would have given you real life. He would have given you purity, overflowing, opulent abundance of purity, of water, of life. She didn't know how he was going to accomplish that since he didn't have anything to draw water out of the well. Think about it. She's still thinking in what we would think of as reality terms, and she's not realizing that this is a Jewish rabbi, and she should realize he's talking like a Jewish rabbi. She doesn't get it. She's making everything literal, like what the Christians do today. Everything's got to be literal. This is what she's done. So she's not understanding it. She's thinking, okay, so I should ask you to draw water for me, but you don't have any way to draw water. What are you gonna do? Jump down in the water, scoop it up, somehow crawl back up without losing it, and give it? It doesn't make any sense to her. So then he says to her, whoever drinks of this water, speaking about the well, they shall thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I give shall never thirst. But the water that I give shall be a well of water springing up into everlasting life. Then he told her she had been married 5 times and was now just living with a man. So to that she said, I can see you're a Navi. I can see you're a prophet. Because she knows he's not from around there. There's no way he could have heard the gossip. So she's, okay, you must be a prophet. So why are you here? She then asked. We worship on this mountain, but the Yehudim, the Jews, worship in the Hall. They worship in the temple. Yeshua said to her, you worship, you don't know what. You know not what. You don't know what you're worshiping. You do, but you don't even know what you're worshiping. The true worshipers, he said, worship in word. They worship in spirit. They worship in Torah and in truth. It's like saying they worship in the Torah and in the Torah, because the Torah is the truth, right? So, again, this is a Jewish way of talking. This is a rabbinic way of talking. So the true worshipers, the people who are really worshiping, the people who know what they're doing, who know what they're worshiping or who they're worshiping, they worship according to the Torah, which is the truth, is really what he's saying. In other words, you don't have the Torah, thus you don't have the truth. Pretty harsh. Then the woman said, well, you really hurt my feelings. I'm a social justice warrior, and so I'm going to sue you for hurting my feelings. No. The woman said, when the Mashiach comes, he will teach us all things. That's no different than what they do today. If we disagree on something, what is the first thing they say? Well, now we see through a glass dimly, but when we're all in heaven, we'll know everything, right? That's exactly what she's doing here. It's kind of a way of saying, well, you don't know everything either. Seriously, it is. Then Yeshua said, I am. He just said, I am. He did not say, I am he. He just said, I am. Yeshua could be honest with the regular people, if you think about it. Even with the people who did the things they were told to do for salvation, like go to synagogue, cover their heads. Oh my gosh. I just realized I still have this on my head. People. My gland squad is failing me. Anyway, he could talk to the regular people like this Samaritan woman. He could even talk to the Jewish people who went to synagogue. They wore their zitzio, their fringe. They paid their tithe. They were always sober of mind. They were kind when they were supposed to be. They were respectful. They weren't brawlers. But he couldn't talk this openly with the religious leaders, could he? Still can't to this day. Why do so many people think that living according to God's law isn't any better than living without it? Why? How did we ever get there? How come we've seemingly been there from the very beginning? Why do so many people come to feel that living for God is worse than living without Him? This is very common. Why do so many people only call on God when things are going badly, when there's an emergency or a need? I want to look at Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, chapter 2. I'm going to drop down to verses 5 through 13. I'm just going to translate it the way I did. Let's put this back on. It is the Word of God, although it's in English. Thus says Yahweh, what injustice did your fathers find in me? This is what God has to say. It really was thus, but did not say saith. Thus says Yahweh, what injustice did your fathers find in me? God is saying, what injustice could be found in God Himself? That they went from me and walked after emptiness and became empty. Because if you walk after emptiness, what are you going to become? Empty. If you walk after idols, what are you going to become? An idol worshiper. It's the same thing. Verse 6, and they did not say, where is Yahweh who brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim or Egypt, who led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and of pits, through a land of drought and of deep darkness, through a land that no one crossed and where no man dwelt. That's not what really happened, is it? So this is poetic. You got to understand they're talking about He's led us from a really horrible place. It's just the way they do it. We would say He led us out of a really horrible place, but they say it this way. You know that it wasn't a land where men didn't dwell because they met people along the way. They had to have battles with them. They entered into covenant with some. You follow what I'm saying? So it's not literal. You can't take this literal. What they're trying to say is He's led us from a horrible, horrible place. And God says, I brought you into the fruitful land to eat its fruit and its good things. But you came and defiled my land, and my inheritance you made an abomination. They stopped seeking after Yahweh, the one who led them out of their bondage through the wilderness to the wonderful place, which was His presence. So if we take it literally, we're thinking Israel. You should be realizing that He led them to His presence. Verse 8, the Kohanim, the priests, did not say, where is Yahweh? And those who handled the Torah did not know me. The rulers also transgressed against me, and the Nevi'im, the prophets, prophesied by Baal, and walked after things that did not profit. What is it to prophesy by Baal? You say, thus says Baal. Well, you could if you want to, but what do they mean by prophesy by Baal? They're talking about what's going on in the Western world today. All of these people running around saying, thus saith the Lord, woe unto you non-Christians, woe unto you evil people, God's going to take you down, and thus saith the Lord, all is well, give this man your money and God will make you rich. Thus, all these people going around calling themselves prophets. Those people are prophesying by Baal because they don't know what a real prophet is. They only know what Christianity, and not just Christianity, but other religions along the line of Christianity have made prophets to be. They have confused soothsayers with prophets. And so what they're doing is doing the job of a soothsayer, thinking themselves to be prophets. Their prophecies are not real. They're not true. They do not come from God. They are not of God. So they are prophesying by Baal. That's what they mean by this. Therefore, verse 9, I will yet contend with you, declares Yahweh, and with your sons' sons, I will contend. This is going to go on for a while. Why? Because your sons are going to be like your fathers, aren't they? Difficult to break this pattern once it gets started. For cross to the coastlands of Kittim and see, and send to Kedar and observe closely, and see if there has been such a thing as this. In other words, no one else is doing this. You people are in the presence of God, and you're the ones doing it. Has a nation changed gods when they were not gods? No. But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. It's like saying you become idol worship. You had the real God and you went out after idols. People who follow idols, they don't change from that and go after me. But you who have me go out after that. Verse 12. Be appalled, O heavens, at this, and shudder. Be very desolate, declares Yahweh. For my people have committed two evils. This is the one we had a while ago. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. So I want to move on to further down into it, because we've been in chapter 2 the whole time anyway. But let's move on down to 17 through 19. Have you not done this to yourselves, to yourself rather, by forsaking Yahweh your God, while he led you in the way? They forsook God while he was leading them in the way. You realize this is how everybody does it, not just them in the olden days. You come to God, you get excited about it, you say, oh God, I want to live for you, I want you to be in my heart, blah, 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 and you forsake him while he is trying to lead you in the way. That's the way everybody does it, not just these people. The way is what? That's the problem with Christianity. They don't know that the way is the Torah. It's Torah observance. That's the way of God. And if you don't understand it, if you don't believe me, think about it. When they went to Sinai, they were given the law, right? And so they all said, we will obey your law. So Moshe goes up to the mountain. That's Moses, if you don't know who he is. He goes up to the mountain to carve out the law for the people, to make it official. And while he's up in the mountain, the people start saying, wait a minute, where'd this guy go? We hadn't seen him in almost 40 days. What's up with that? He went up there and got eaten by a big bear or something. Let's make our own God. And so they made an idol and started worshiping it. One of the first things they promised they would never do was the first thing they did. So what does God say to Moshe? You probably better get back a ways from me, because my anger is really starting to boil up and you're liable to get killed in the midst of it. And so get back a little ways, because the people have defiled themselves. They have turned quickly from the way. What was the way? The law that they had just been given. They had turned quickly from the law. The way of God is the law. Yeshua said, I am the way. That's the law. The truth. What's the truth? The law. And the life. What's the life? The law. Who is the life? Who is the truth? Who is the law? Yahweh God. In the beginning was the Word, which is the law. And the Word, which is the law, was with God. And the Word, which is the law, was God. Oh, I don't follow that. Well, it's actually that simple. We used to be like that in America. Some people kind of still are, but we've almost lost it at this point in America. But we used to be, our word was our bond. They used to say things like a man is only as good as his word. God's word is his bond. If he said it, it's eternal. That's why God is the word. You can't separate the one from the other. Verse 18. But now, why are you, listen to this, you'll never believe what this says. But now, why are you on the road to Mitzrayim? You guys know what that is? Egypt. But now, why are you on the road to Egypt? Is it to drink the waters of Shihor? You going back to the dried up cistern, to the dried up well? Or why are you on the road to Ashur? Is it to drink the waters of that river? Why are you on the road that leads back to the place that God led you away from? Why are you headed back to the bondage God freed you from? Or, because that's Egypt. Now remember, there was Ashur. Why have you chosen a road not to Egypt and not to God? Because some people do that. It's like, well, I've tried Christianity, I've tried Judaism, I've tried the law, I've tried not the law. I'm just going to do something completely different. That's the road to Ashur. First, they left Yahweh after he brought them to a good land with good times. He brings them to a good land in good times, and they forsook him. Then they wound up in captivity over it. So then, when they were released from that captivity and they returned to the good land, it wasn't such a good time. But they left him again. You got a good land. Sometimes the times are going to be good. Sometimes the times are going to be bad. But both times, they left both times. Verse 19, your wickedness, because turning away from God, living any way other than the way God said to live, is wickedness. Wickedness. But your wickedness will discipline you. Be sure your sin will find you out. Be sure you'll pay for your crime. That's kind of what he's saying. Your wickedness will discipline you. And your disobedience, speaking to the Torah, your disobedience to the Torah, it will judge you. Know therefore and see that it's garbage in, garbage out. What you give, you receive. What you sow, what you plant, that's what you receive from. That's really what's being said here. Your wickedness will just discipline you. What you sow, you'll reap from it. Your disobedience will judge you. What you sow, you reap. Do you see it? Know therefore and see that it is evil and bitter for you to forsake Yahweh your God. And the reverence of me is not in you, declares my Lord Yahweh of hosts. Forsaking God only leads to evil and bitterness. Often when people come to God, they are filled with awe and excitement. The sky is bluer, the grass is greener, and life seems perfect. I went through that. Then a little time goes by, and not much has changed. They seem to forget that it took them a whole life to reach the point of conversion. And for some reason, they expect everything about them to be instantly different. They feel that they should immediately lose their desire for smoking, drinking, cussing, gardening, and a whole host of other things. They feel that everything in life should instantly change and nothing should ever go wrong again. But there is a reason why God called himself and the Torah the way, or the path of life. We're not born today and mature tomorrow. No, we are on a journey through this strange land with its many hills and valleys, mountains and oceans to cross. There are only two ways, two paths to travel. One is straight and lonely and even boring. But it is only hard if we make it that way. The other path is wide and exciting, at least in the beginning, and it meanders in every direction and becomes harder and harder no matter what we do. The strange thing is, we fall in love with an idea of God and are disenchanted when our image of God doesn't reconcile with the reality. Worse yet, we forget just how bad the wide path was and convince ourselves that things were better in Mitzrayim. We think that things were better where we came from. I guess the thing we should do when we get on the path is drink from the well. That well is learning and living out the Torah, the easy way. Not the hard way, the easy way. Otherwise, we might just find ourselves back on the road to Mitzrayim, back on that road to Egypt, thinking that things will somehow be better when we go back to the evil and bitterness we left in the first place. Shalom, Shalom.